But it is funny once you look at it because you're
Mm-hmm.
like, what the heck, man? It
What
is
was I
like
thinking?
Michael Valentine Smith watching the monkeys at the zoo, finally figuring out this is what is funny. This is why they're laughing because
Mm-hmm.
it's so sad. They couldn't do anything else. And that is the beauty of it. And of course, Michael Valentine Smith, the hero of the
Stranger in a
beautiful
Strange Land.
Stranger in a Strange Land.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
been years since I read that. I think I was in high school even. I might have
it,
read that.
uh,
Or
that changed
college
my
days maybe.
world. That book completely changed my world.
Yeah, that
That
was
complete
one
that
of
book,
many.
yeah,
Yeah.
that made me understand a lot of things that were confusing to me before.
Hmm.
So anyway, good morning, everybody. We're here with Bruce Rawles and Lynn Johnson, and we are reading Symphony of Love by it's the story of Ken Wapnick, written from many points of view, his own and things that he wrote and whatever. It's a compilation that I guess Gloria, his wife, put together in order to um, I don't know, honor him and everything that he stood for, everything that he did. And right now we're reading one of his little autobiographies that he wrote. And and we're hearing all about his love of music and other such things. So, anyway, good morning. And I see Marissa and Deb here as well. So, we're going to go ahead and share the book, which I was able to find.
I just realized I rebooted my computer, but I think I found where we left off, which was in my dynamically formatted version is page 11 of the particular one where it's I proceeded to graduate school without really knowing why. Is that where you left off?
Let's see.
Does that sound about right?
Well, let me see. I've got a
The
bookmark right.
challenge of a digital version
It,
is
it, it,
you
it,
you change the width of the screen and it changes where you are
That's
formatted
right.
was.
So if
Yeah.
you look at or if you can see on the screen where I have a bookmark, um,
Okay,
so
geez, let me see
it
here.
was had been writing a fairy tale. Wish
Right.
I had that. Maybe it's in here.
I think, did we read the part about Rainer Maria Rilke?
I
I,
don't think so.
okay. Maybe
So
my
that's
bookmark is a week old, which is
well,
not out of the realm of possibility. Okay, let's see.
let me go back to where my bookmark was.
I'm using Preview, which doesn't really have bookmarks, so that's something I could change.
We'll get you there.
Yeah.
Well, last night I was playing
Okay, let's see.
Dr. David Hawkins on Pal Talk. That
Okay.
was really good.
Still talking about Beethoven, where I'm skimming through here. By the way, I did update my blog post on Ken Wapnick's favorite Beethoven and other classical music because I found some broken links and some of the videos weren't available, so I just changed it to links. But I did find an extensive collection of music that was performed and remastered by Furtwängler, the conductor that Ken Wapnick really had a great admiration for. And I put that if you go to ACIM blog and just put Beethoven in the search uh, field, you'll find it real quickly. I just updated that post from a decade ago.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Uh, Coffee.
All right.
All right, you getting there? Or I got us
Okay.
on page 33.
Okay, then that's probably more cl So let me put in Duino elegies and I'll find it that way. Apologies for the delay for everyone who's listening. Just Do we
That's all right.
know that? There we go. Okay, I'm there. All right.
All right.
Do you
All
want me
right.
to pick up where we left off?
Sure.
Okay. I'm just going to give the intro, just for the context for people who have just joined. Um, we're reading from, that is to say, Lynn Johnson and I, Bruce Rawls, are reading from A Symphony of Love, selections of Dr. Kenneth Wapnick's writings, autobiographies, poetry, short stories, and articles edited by Gloria Wapnick. And we're a few weeks into this now. And where we left off, um, Ken is commenting, and he says, um, then at the end of March, it burst upon me. Totally unexpectedly, I became very involved with the Duino elegies. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, or Rainer Maria Rilke. I'm not sure the pronunciation of any of that, but anyway, culminating in the work of this German poet's life. The theme of this 10 series of poems is man's search to find meaning in his life and the reconciliation of the spiritual world with the external levels of existence, which seem to be so meaningless. Well, isn't that everyone's inner quest, right? Trying to find meaning in a meaningless world. Very, very fitting for these early workbook lessons for those of us doing the umpteenth time the Course in Miracles workbook lessons at the beginning of the year. So yeah, I've particularly like lesson 2. I've given everything all the meaning that it has for me. It's like, okay, well, if I subtract the meaning I've given it, what meaning does it have? Well, without the context, without that astronaut's perspective, without that grand unifying idea, which is the atonement principle, that nothing happened, that separation is a myth, there is no meaning, right? But with that, there's more meaning than we can imagine. That's
And
the beauty of it, isn't it?
lessons 1 and 2 are such a great setup for us
Oh yeah,
because,
yeah,
first off, looking around and saying, this doesn't have any meaning. This doesn't have
yeah.
any. And then the next day saying, well, if it has a meaning, I'm the one who gave all that meaning to it.
Right.
And so it brings it right back to cause, immediately,
Mm-hmm.
immediately
Mm-hmm.
back to cause. I'm the one, I gave it all this meaning.
Yep.
So that should be enough, right? That should be enough.
It should be enough. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Synchronistically, yesterday, Marissa, who's joined our group this morning, gave a facilitated a wonderful class for School for Course in Miracles on the first 8 workbook lessons. And, we were discussing how, the meaning that we've given everything, has to be looked at. And as you were saying that, Lynn, it occurred to me that lesson 1 is really looking at the outer shield of oblivion, just looking around the room and seeing, or wherever we think we are at any given moment, and just seeing all these projections that seem to be outside don't mean anything within the ego context. There's within the ego frame of mind and thought system, we've given them meaning, and so that's now we've brought it back inside to the inner shield of oblivion, which is, I think, the meaning that I've given to my projections is something, but the meaning really, if we look at it in all honesty, is some form of the separation happened, aka sin. Therefore, guilt is the obvious uh, reaction to that, and from that belief that we pulled off this impossible crime, and then from that, there's no other choice but fear. But the Course says, well, what if that's not true? What if that that inner secret dream, that which is the cause of the outer public dream, that is seems to be the basis for what we call science. What if both of those are um, distortions, hallucinations, fantasies, and misinterpretations of everything? How would we know unless we had a broader perspective, that astronaut's perspective? Right?
Exactly that,
Yeah.
from a distance, like the Bette Midler song. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that, I mean,
All right.
so many clues, but
And what we're really distancing ourselves from is from the identification with the ego's interpretation of everything. That's the real distance that is helpful, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I have, and that's a choice. It's
Yeah,
always a choice.
it
You know,
is.
nothing is happening to me outside of my own purview. I'm the one who made it up. And you know that as we go along and see more and more and more how we are the ones who are responsible for everything that seems to be here. And the only true answer is to just change our mind about it. That is such an expression of our own power. We think we're powerful. We built this world, but the power is that we can leave this world. It doesn't hold us; we hold it,
Hmm.
and that is such a gift to at least have an inkling of that, so that
Hmm.
whenever things happen, we do have a reason to look another way, to choose a different way. Um, Otherwise, we're just trapped.
Yeah, yeah.
We're just
Well, we certainly believe we are. As you're saying that, Lynn, I was thinking, well, if you remember the Venn diagrams from school days where you've got, little blobs on a chalkboard and you put a name inside one of the blobs and you put another blob and then they can either be completely no connection, or if they overlap, you say that the intersection is the part where they overlap, and then there's the union, which is if you draw a line that encloses both of those blobs, the total circumference and and all that kind of stuff. But I was thinking our typical worldview from birth is I'm this little dot, which is a body. If there's a mind, it's usually an afterthought. But then the brain, occasionally gets a little importance. But then I'm within a world that's a much bigger world. So I'm this little dot within this giant world, within a even larger cosmos and yada yada, galaxies and on to the cosmos. And that worldview really is, uh, as always, completely backwards and inside out, because from the course's perspective, from the metaphysics of non-duality, the entire universe of matter, space, time, energy is basically a projection of the split mind, which only from that perspective does it make sense. From a non-split mind, does it make sense? And that split mind is contained within this tiny mad idea of separation. So it's really basically, the cosmos is the smallest little dot, the tiny mad idea that's contained within the outer shell, if you will, of the diagram would be the ego thought system. And then even and both of those are dwarfed by our reality to the point that they are both the ego and its projected universe are, you know, basically nothing. And
nothing.
in fact, they were over long ago. They didn't last but a tiny, picosecond of dreaming. And but our minds are so powerful that we've extended this dream to of the point where we don't even question it, which is amazing.
Well, because we think it's outside of us.
Yeah, yeah,
And the coming to the realization that there is nothing outside of me, and
right.
that it is all in my own mind, which is really, I mean, that is that's what happens as you do the lessons day after day after day after day. You're being shown over and over and over again, this is in your own mind. This is from your own thinking. This has nothing to do with what you really are, because if it was, you wouldn't be able to see it outside of you. You
Right.
you're seeing something that isn't even there. Uh,
Yeah. We're all
but
hallucinating here, but it's so believable because our minds are so powerful. We can add all this detail and put the best post-production houses around the world that do all the special effects of the movies to shame. If even with all of them working around the clock together, they still couldn't match a fraction, tiny fraction of a second of the photorealism of our holographic dream projection. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
I think those early workbook lessons where you're asked to look around the room and identify familiar objects and but not dwell on any one of them, just kind of like a pan, pan on a camera where you're just consistent motion scanning across the room and seeing, what if all these things are just elaborate ray tracing images that I'm generating with not just with my brain, but as an interpretation, but really with a split mind that has become so accustomed to it, it doesn't even realize what it's doing. It's
Well,
basically fabricating an entire cosmos where there really is uh, just behind that facade, there's our reality. And we've seemingly gone so far uh, down the rabbit hole of that ego thought system that we we think that, maybe there's nothing else, and that's where it gets depressing.
here's the funny thing, though. This is the joke about all of it,
Mhm.
is it really is not that elegant. It is not
Right, right.
sophisticated. It's not that beautiful. It's not that amazing. We're just easily fooled
Oh,
because we're like feeling like we're the helpless
yeah,
here.
and the beauty that we do see is really not outside. So neither is the ugliness. It's
Right.
all you know, I'm choosing to feel this way. I'm choosing to think this way. I'm choosing to believe, and it's all projection, 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 projection. Yeah.
It's just you just have to laugh. And that's the
Yeah.
point of it, is to come to the point where you look at it and you can just laugh and say, man, how could I have ever been fooled by all this?
What
This
was
is
I
like
thinking?
it's like a kid, at a magic show, watching the magician do all their little illusions and thinking,
Uh-huh.
oh wow, that lady just really disappeared. But no, she just went into the back of the closet and now, I mean, seriously, we're just like children, just like looking around going, wow, this is cool. But in reality, we're the ones who are making it up, and we're so proud of ourselves for it. It's like, oh my gosh.
Like little
But
kindergartners bringing home their scrawlings on with
yeah,
crayons and pencils on paper after at the end of the year. I remember I have this vivid memory of I was like first or second grade, maybe it was kindergarten, but early childhood. And I was walking home the last day of school, and I had this wad of papers in my hand. It was the sum total of my life's work, basically. And 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 I was walking along. I only lived about 3 blocks from school in Livermore, California, and I remember this gust of wind. I hadn't even gone a block from Junction Avenue School, blew all the papers out of my hand, and I was just this little kid standing there in tears. And some nice guy drove past and got out of his car and helped me pick up the papers, and my world was restored. But it was just, it's like that's what we do with our projections. We make such enormous big deals about our little, juvenile scrawlings.
I know. And I always imagine this world as a little drawing on God's refrigerator. Like it's like, oh, isn't that cute? But let me put that
Well,
on my
that's it.
fridge.
That's it. I mean, it's quaint absurdity, as the course points out. Right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and it is, and of course we go looking at it so sophisticated, so amazing, but when you look at the reality, what we know of how it's made, what we know of how it is, everything is made out of destruction of something else,
yeah,
destruction,
yeah.
destruction, destruction,
Well,
destruction.
Ken Wapnick uses the word cannibalism frequently, and for good reason, because it's not a pretty word, but it's really what we believe is thinking of ourselves as biological life forms that we must do in order to survive, and we justify the hell out of it, and yet the absurdity of that and the absolute laughable premise of that as being anything sustainable is ridiculous, and and at best we live about a century as humans, and give or take a decade or 10. and, and it's like, what's up with that little blip on the radar, type of an existence, it's like,
Yeah.
well,
Oh, but we're so proud of it.
oh yeah,
Oh,
oh
well, I
yeah.
have my family, my children. I wrote a book. I did this work. Oh wow, wow, wow. Uh,
And it's
and
not to diminish any of that. It's just basically say, what if that is dwarfed by our real identity? And we're just like
we're
sitting in a
living in a
hole, and
food
there's a ladder right next to us that we could crawl out of this little pit we've tossed ourselves into. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I call it, living in a fool's paradise.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what we're doing here. All right. Well, let's get on with our book.
What? Yeah, why don't I give this paragraph a running start? And
Okay.
I'm actually inspired to read Rilke's work after I've
All right. I'm going to go back to
I've
the
heard that
beginning.
name before, but now I might have to do a little research and find out
It
what
sounds
Ken's
like
talking about.
work to me, so I'm not going to do it. All right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it'll be a back burner probably thing for a while. But
Okay.
anyway, okay. So I'll start that paragraph again. Uh, After 25 minutes of hopefully helpful discussion, we'll finally get into what we plan to do. Then at the end of March, it burst upon me. Totally unexpectedly, I became very involved with the Duino elegies of Rainer Maria Rilke, the culminating work of this German poet's life. The theme of this series of 10 poems is man's search to find meaning in his life and the reconciliation of the spiritual world with the external levels of existence, which seem to be so meaningless. I had first read them in college, but had been much too young to understand them. Now their full meaning began to come to me, and I felt at one with both the rhythm and the developing themes of the poems. Almost at once, I began to write, and in 28 days completed a line by line analysis of the 10 elegies, illustrating. That'd be interesting to read, wouldn't it? One of these going to get to
Yeah.
that. Uh, me, the poems meet, in quotes, meaning, quote, how the spiritual development of the poet could be understood through an understanding of his poetry. On one level, I think it was the realization of what I had once hoped to do with Beethoven for my dissertation. I felt it was the type of analysis Jung would have done had he been as interested in music and rhythm as he had been in language and symbols. Interesting. My indebtedness to him was clearly manifest in the book's title, adapted from one of Jung's own papers, The Phenomenology of the Spirit in Rilke's Duino Elegies. Okay. And again, apologies if I mispronounce any of that. The actual writing was a more intensified form of any previous writing experiences, perhaps because the work was so much larger. I felt possessed, and at this time would almost literally jump out of bed in the morning so as to continue the writing. It was an exhilarating experience, and again, one in which felt I was not doing the writing. In fact, shortly after I'd completed the book, I could barely remember what was contained in either what, quote, I, unquote, had written, or in the poems, quote, I, unquote, had just so carefully worked with. Well, there's a big clue there, isn't it? And when we let Holy Spirit work through us, we don't have to be concerned about um, the the origin, because we're connected to the source of truth rather than the ego's inevitable pathological lying garbage. Or they'll call it fertilizer, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
we
Exactly.
can use it as fertilizer rather than discarding the benefit. The fertilizer is realizing, okay, that becomes. I like that wonderful story of Edison, where he was once interviewed and asked, after he'd tried 1,000 experiments and finally got something that made a light bulb that was sustainable. I guess it was tungsten he discovered was a suitable material. And anyway, so this one interviewer said, what, don't you feel bad about all those failures? And he said, no, those are a thousand successes in discovering what didn't work. So there's the fertilizer. So we can use all of our um, you know diversions into ego thought as opportunities to notice how miserable we've made ourselves, and then use that as the impetus and the motivation to climb out of that ego hole, right?
I'm out of that hole. That's
Yeah.
right. All right.
Let me just finish the paragraph, and then
Yeah.
I'll
Really.
turn it over to you. Okay. Okay. When it was completed, I knew it was something of magnitude and importance, but also recognized that its true content was still beyond me and would take a great deal of additional work. But for the present, I knew I had done all that I could do. I came back to it over the summer, but that involved little more than a retyping of the original manuscript, which had been handwritten. It clearly was a work for my future. Okay, well, a little bookmark for Rilke there, and now maybe we'll go back and look at his poems.
Yeah. Oh, maybe this in this. Who
And well,
knows?
maybe we'll find out. Yeah, since certainly haven't finished this. This is my first reading. Well, I think I've read a little farther than this, but I don't think I got too much farther than this when I picked this up a year or two ago. So anyway, why don't you pick up
Okay, hang on just a second.
if
Yeah,
you're ready anyway.
I'm ready.
Okay,
Okay.
excellent.
On completing On completing the Rilke book, I began immediately to work on one of a far greater breadth, tracing the phenomenology of God in the Old and New Testaments. Wow, you're just like picking right up. I proceeded by similar methodology, a
Ken's such
line
a
by
show
line.
off.
I know it,
What
man.
a whiz kid, you know. And
I'm
he's
telling
doing this and he's barely out of the crib, you know. I mean,
you know,
give us a
I,
break.
I ran the marathon and now I'm going to run down the road and get some sun out.
We
Okay.
love Ken, but boy, sometimes he's such a show off.
Yes, but also this is a good way of seeing that when you're inspired by the Holy Spirit, it doesn't come from you, so it doesn't take your energy or your life.
Exactly,
It
exactly.
just
In fact,
gives,
it gives us energy. Yes.
yeah, and that's how I see this. Yeah, so
Hmm.
on completing the Rilke book, I began immediately to work on one of a far greater breadth, trace I think breadth might be the word, tracing the phenomenology of God in the Old and New Testaments. I proceeded by a similar methodology, a line by line analysis, beginning with Genesis, and completed about 60 pages through Jacob's dream of the angels, and then the inspiration expired, and so it has remained until this day. So that obviously was a gift for him. The finer major writing of this period was a short story about the conductor. Over the summer, I recalled the germ, and quite rapidly it germinated and bore fruit. Once again, its final form and content far exceeded the most modest bounds I had conceived. It centered about Beethoven's Eroica Symphony, which had heralded his entry into the inner world and bore the seeds of what was to come. Its spirit filled me as I listened to it over and over again and came to fill and define the story. And when it was done, the story had pushed far beyond what I knew or understood. So I love this. I listen to music when I'm writing too.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it
Me too.
really is helpful. I'm sure he listened to music all the time when he was doing this.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
wow. Uh, so the culmination of this intense period also was the culmination of my 10-year tutelage with Beethoven. As with most things, this was not a conscious decision. At the beginning of the summer, I thought it might be nice to construct a Beethoven collage to put on the wall. One thing led to another, and as it began to take shape, I realized it was to be my farewell present to him. Over the top of the collage, I put in bold black letters, Heiliger Dankesang, Dankesang, Heiliger Dankesang.
Maybe Marissa can help us translate that. I think
Uh,
Heiliger is holy, right? Heiligen and Heiliger is probably holy.
and maybe
And Danke is
thankful song,
good,
Donker.
thankful song. Yeah, holy thankful
Yeah,
song, maybe.
yeah. Holy
Is
thankful
that about
song.
right?
I don't know.
I'm guessing.
Okay. Through this, someone's writing in the chat. So let us see. She's thumbsing up in it. She's
Oh, okay.
thumbsing up in us. So
Okay.
so I guess that means yeah. You know what? I studied German. I, I tried to learn German. That is my brain is clunky for that. It is not a language or brain. Okay, so for but I loved the language. So cute.
Yeah, yeah.
For through this, I would be saying thank you for all he had meant to me and for what he had taught me about God. The collage was to include a long, lovely prose excerpt from Rilke, which beautifully expressed my own feelings concerning Beethoven's music, the opening bars of the Heiliger Dankensong movement, and a symbolic arrangement of Beethoven's dates and places of birth and death, with a symbol for infinity in the middle. All that was missing, I recognized, was something of mine. I tried very hard to write a poem to him, but the harder I worked at it, the more frustrating became my failures. I finally abandoned the idea and felt that the collage would have to be completed without it. Then, some weeks later, about a month before Labor Day, when I thought it should be finished, the opening lines and outline of the poem came to me most unexpectedly as I was driving to work. I wrote them down at once when I arrived, and in time the poem came to be written. I've written dozens of poems over the years, but always left them in their original, raw, and most unfinished state. This had been the only poem I ever believed I had perfected, and which said what I felt. In no way did it seem odd or strange to feel such gratitude toward a dead person, even when I had never felt so deeply towards anyone I had known. In fact, it was the only possible emotion to feel because I knew it was not Beethoven I was expressing my gratitude to, but to him, capital H, who had lived through him. And when it was all completed, I knew that my offering of thanksgiving had been accepted. For in Beethoven's own words, which I had placed at the bottom of the collage, Von Herzen moge es wieder zu Herzen gehen. It had gone from my heart, returning to his. And excuse my German pronunciation, but
Thankfully, he
uh,
gave us a little translation there.
if Michaeli was here, she's.
Well, I know Marissa lived in Switzerland for a decade, so she probably could give us a little.
But I think that wasn't too
That
bad.
that might that sounded like it would be. It sounded good to me anyway. What do I know?
Yeah, that's what I learned about German pronunciation and just how cute the words were because I was learning my German dictionary is for technical, so it's all about
When you say how long the words are, there's this wonderful Monty Python skit where they're interviewing this German author and one of the Python troupe, and he pronounces the guy's last name, which takes about 3 minutes to say. And said, today we're interviewing Baron von, it goes on and on, for about 3 minutes, and it says, so tell us about your life, and then it recites the guy's name for about 3 minutes again. And then the guy says I, and then recites his name for about 3 minutes. He grew up in such and such, but before he goes very far, the interviewer says, and so Mr. And then recites the name. So most of the interview is really just the guy's name.
in his name. That's
It's pretty funny.
hilarious.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. I
Mhm.
remember the funniest
Something
thing
like that anyway.
because I had to travel to Germany for my work. And so, I'm trying desperately to learn how to say things or express things or at least understand what people are saying to me.
Hmm.
But one of the cutest thing, uh, the word for fork is gobblestop, and the word for forklift, which was what I was concerned about, the forklift, the
Yeah.
gobblestopper,
Okay.
and the gobblestop.
And this is a quick aside. Um, Unlike my resume, my wife Nancy is able to put forklift driver on her resume because she worked for a place in Auburn, California, called Pacific Screening Line. And that was another little amusing thing when we were both trying to find work when we first got together as a couple. She said, "Yeah, I started working as an office manager for this company that makes equipment for the gravel screening industry and these big gravel plants and whatnot. That they sort these rubber mats that where the gravel falls through at different diameters and sorts out the gravel. Well, anyway, so they had this inventory in this warehouse, and she was the one girl Friday kind of operation, and um, the guy who ran the place was out doing sales most of the time. So she basically was left in charge. And when deliveries would come in, uh, she basically, out of necessity, quickly learned how to run the forklift so she could pull the stuff off the back of the trucks and and load it
Oh,
and put it
girl.
where it needed to go. So I think it's kind of cool. But she says, don't mention that to anybody. So now it's on on recording.
Oh, now we know, Nancy.
But I think it's cool. I
It's
think it's
cool.
cool that she knows how to run
It's
the
cool.
forklift.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah.
I was a forklift driver.
Yeah.
I operated all the heavy equipment, the front end loader, the fork,
Yeah. Oh, see,
everything.
you two have
Yeah, neat.
skills that I probably will never get around to
Out there.
developing. But
And yes, I did a lot of mineral processing where we did a lot
yeah.
of screening, uh,
Okay.
sizing for all different kinds of things of anyway, so I'm a digger, so I
Oh,
love
that's cool. Well,
any
the quick footnote to that, uh, digression, was that the guy that she worked for turned out, she says, "What's the guy's name that you work for?" When she said, "Oh, his name's Brad Critchfield." I said, "Brad? I mean, wait, is he from Livermore by any chance?" I said, "Yeah, well, I grew up next to him, literally next door." One
Oh
of those
my
small
gosh.
world stories. Yeah.
That,
Anyway,
yeah, yeah. Well, no, it is a one world story, and we're
exactly,
we're
exactly. Yeah.
all, that's the funny thing is all the connections are out of our imagination.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. It's
so
all
yeah,
interconnected. It's one giant spaceship. We're all in it together. Enjoy the
I
ride.
love
Make
it.
make friends with everyone on the ship.
That's right. Well, you know what? They are you. So
Exactly.
if you're
Yeah.
not friends with them, then you got some work to do, Lucy. Anyway,
Some splaining to do.
some explaining to do.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then of course Lucille Ball is the one who fought to make Star Trek a reality and was the producer in the Desilu
Isn't that
Productions.
something? Isn't
Yep.
that
Yep.
something?
Yep.
God bless her.
Good on
God
her. Yeah.
bless her.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. All right. Oh, I'm in a love fest now. I'm excited.
Oh, this
So,
is fun. Yeah.
all right,
As always.
as always. So in the preceding year, I had intensively lived with the works of Beethoven's final period, the last piano sonatas, the Ninth Symphony, and Mrs. Solemnis, and above all, the quartets, and had reached the point where I felt totally at one with them. The 14th quartet, op 131, which has always seemed to me to be perfection itself, its opening fugue being the very expression of the kingdom of heaven, became the work I felt closest to after almost a decade of climbing its summit. And so there was nothing more to be learned from him, at least not through his music. But another aspect did have a most important lesson to teach me, and this related to the glaring discrepancy between Beethoven's external and spiritual or musical lives. In no man, I think, has the difference been as great. On the one hand, his music expressed a level of spirituality attained by very, very few, while on the other, his life in the world was a total wretched and unhappy one. I was always confused by this, and since I had also during this time been rereading his biography, the problem rose up again. But once more, the spiritual experience in his music and the final beatific vision he had attained could not be cast aside, and so I was forced to conclude that life's suffering was an essential ingredient to spiritual advancement. Okay. Yet somewhere I knew Beethoven's life was nonetheless a somewhat less than successful integration of the external and internal, but my full acceptance of that, along with its implications for me, was still about a year away.
Can
Uh,
we pause for a moment?
yes.
I just wanted to mention that I think it's that 14th quartet, Opus 131, that is one of the late quartets that Ken kind of turned me on to a decade or so ago, and that I put an updated links to a number of the pieces that Ken uses in his videos and audios, um, and that he also is mentioning here in this writing too. And those late quartets are really very unusual, but profound. If you listen to them, over and over, you realize, like he's saying, the depth of those works. So I put the link in the chat. It was my January 2015 bulletin, so it's just literally 11 years ago, I guess, that I posted about that. So I just updated some of the links on that. So I think all the links are not broken now.
Oh, cool.
So
Oh,
yeah,
cool. So,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, so it's wonderful to have that. Um, uh, the, the, the music available that we can listen to while we're
yeah, yeah. And
contemplating
like I say,
this.
there's a link toward the bottom of that post. There's actually five bullets that about the work from Wilhelm Furtwängler, and the last one is the remastered symphonies 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 plus present, and then a little degree symbol. Anyway, centuries recorded. So that one's probably, I haven't listened to that all the way through, but that looks really promising. And the remastered quality is I think they got rid of a lot of the scratches and pops and stuff on it. So it's
Oh,
I
that,
listened to just a minute or two of it and it sounded really good. So I'm looking forward to listening to more of it, since Furtwängler was one of the, maybe the composer or the conductor rather that Ken really admired the most of Beethoven's work. So
All right, so you put the link in the
Yep.
chat there for us. So,
Yeah.
and Rafi says the difference between the artist and the person is another key to awakening. Everyone relates to
Do it as they must. Yeah.
as they must. Yeah,
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Yep.
it's a good point. And yeah,
Hmm.
we see so many of these great artists that have like are living with like inner demons
Oh
or
yeah.
outer
Well, doesn't that
demons.
describe all of us? I mean,
Yeah,
well, think
exactly.
well, think about Helen. We just finished reading
Yeah,
Essence of Felicity.
that's who I was just thinking about. Is
Yeah,
the
I mean, because
yeah,
the clarity of her work that we're now benefiting from, and we're probably wouldn't be having this discussion otherwise had she not, you know, stuck with it and produced that profound, prodigious, and beautiful work. And then Ken, in his profound, prolific, and prodigious way, resonated, amplified, and profoundly extended Helen's scribing, and here we are. Yeah.
yeah, and it just obviously the 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 difference is really the what we need to look at.
Yeah.
Why is it? Why is it that I'm holding and look at your own life. Um, me personally, I have a like a really happy life. And just, you know, of course there's ups and downs of things, but that doesn't affect me. Like, I mean, it used to be that I would just be, well, geez, I was suicidal for years. I was ready to kill myself because of this this crazy mind in this world. But
Yeah.
look now, I've come to terms with everything and recognize that uh this really is a dream, and what I'm experiencing here's I think I've talked about this maybe last week a little bit, this phenomena that's been happening with me with my sleeping dreams
Hmm.
that I'm recognizing I can bring right into my waking dream
Hmm.
anytime. In my sleeping dream, I will be dreaming along, something is happening, and then I'll go, well, what's going to happen next? And then I'll go, hey, wait, I didn't set this up for this to happen the way I wanted to. I need to go back to the beginning of the dream and reset things, go for a reset. And when I recognize that I need to go for a reset, I recognize, oh, I'm dreaming. This is
Hmm.
the story that I arranged, and I can, I set it up this way to end up in this with this thing happening right now in this dream. And so, I'm and then once I do that, I recognize I'm dreaming, and I wake up, I stop dreaming. So and of course, then I have to go back to sleep, and then another dream will start up, and I'll do the same thing. So it happens like maybe 3 or 4 times a, a night if I'm sleeping. Um, 3 or 4 times that I will, recognize, oh, I didn't set this up right, or I should have put this in this place instead of that place. And I'll wake up and go, oh wait, no. I'm rearranging things in the dream again. So I recognize that when something seems to be coming up, like, maybe right now there's coming up a a financial problem or something, then I'm thinking, oh, well, I should have, saved my money in December instead of buying all those Christmas presents. And that's it. I want to go back and reset the dream. And I realize, oh, well, this is a dream. I set it up this way in the first place. And then I
Hmm.
can just stop
Yeah.
because there's no more arranging necessary. There was no arranging necessary in the first place. So I think that's really been very helpful to me. This whole idea of, uh, you know, I'm I I did this, and I'm
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
this actively right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's very helpful. And I can appreciate it. I remember having, suicidal thoughts when I was a kid too, but they didn't last very long. But I think it's the idea of being stuck in a specific self is intrinsically depressing. And I think that's why that section in the last chapter of the text, 31, section 4, is, the real alternative talks about how, people have died upon seeing that there was, no alternative within the ego thought system, but that's because all the horizontal alternatives, illusion A, illusion B, illusion C, ad infinitum, ad nauseum, are all the same. And once we really generalize, the point of the generalization is not to stop there, but to go beyond that, to see that there's a place in our mind that is above the battleground, that does have that astronaut's perspective, that does see that the tiny little speck, the little blue dot, as Carl Sagan would describe it, of Earth, really could be transcended by going to the blue dot in our mind. Thank you, Ken Wapnick, for that metaphor, which says I could see peace instead of this. I could see there is a place in my mind, in fact, the totality of our right mind that we all share, where the separation never happened. Even if we, even if it's just initially an intellectual understanding, it will become an experiential one with practice. And I think we can demonstrate that to ourselves by forgiving moment to moment to moment and doing that more and more frequently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just by examining our experience,
Yeah.
looking at it and saying, what is really happening here? And boy, that it just is such a difference, because yeah, then you recognize, oh yeah, uh, I don't have to go back and redo what I set up. It's already it's not happening at all. So let me continue reading.
Okay.
And, and so the summer ended on a note of glory and spiritual triumph. I was living a life I felt as pure as pure as was within me to live at that time, a life totally dedicated to God. By Labor Day, I'd completed the first draft of the Eroica short story, the retyping of the Rilke book, and the collage. I set out from Montauk Point again after a year's absence, and for 3 days lived with the ocean and the beach. I did not eat nor drink while there, and I felt stronger with each day. Truly, I felt I was on top of the world, for I felt God was with me as I had never felt before. Wow. At this point, I must again retreat in time to discuss Judaism and its changing role in my life. While the writing and subsequent understanding of Moses had very important personal implications for my own growth and spiritual development, they also had a strong effect on my intellectual attitude and awareness of my newly awakened Judaism. On one level, Moses told the story of a man who comes as close as any man could to God and the kingdom of heaven without actually entering its peaceful gates. His death on the quote unquote wrong side of the Jordan River, without being allowed entry into the promised land, symbolized the kingdom he did not attain. Such a crossing was withheld by God, according to the Bible, although God himself does not appear in the story, as a consequence of Moses' stubbornness and refusal to submit totally to his will, which he felt so strongly within. And that this was Moses, the greatest of all Israel's prophets. For me, again, on an intellectual level, the biblical tale of Moses epitomized the Jewish religion, a religion that does not teach that man can become God, that he carries at the core of his being God himself. Unlike Christianity, which holds the union with God as its highest goal, Judaism teaches that man and God are separate. They confront one another, as did Moses and God, but the bridge between them is never crossed, so that man can become reunited with his Father. It is Joshua, not Moses, who takes the children of Israel into the promised land. And as I discovered later, the names of Joshua and Jesus have the same meaning in Hebrew. Interesting.
Hmm.
It is therefore Christianity, I began to understand, that continued and fulfilled the journey begun by Judaism, by bringing man across that gulf, bridging the gap between man and God. And of course, it was through Jesus that this occurred. While Moses always retained a part of himself as separate from God, Jesus gave himself completely to the will of his Father, most clearly seen in the agony in the Garden of Gethsemane, a scene which came to have a strong significance in my life, particularly Jesus' words, "Not my will, but thine be done." Thus, even more than before, Jesus became for me the spiritual model I would follow, And the year I just described became part of that path of realizing the kingdom which was in me, if only I could give myself completely to God's will. Despite this intellectual awareness, I felt no attraction to Christianity itself. No shit in any of its forms. Sorry, nor to Jesus as anything but a symbolic example of the path I felt my life should take. But I did begin to reread the New Testament with specific emphasis on the Gospel of John and Revelation, which I connected to very directly. Curiously enough, as this awareness was developing, I was at the same time drawing closer to my own Judaic roots. I had begun the novel on Abraham, and so once more steeped myself in the world of the Old Testament, and found again the spiritual identification with that world. And then, too, shortly after moving to Poughkeepsie in August, I began to consider the possibility of going to a synagogue for the high holidays of Rosh Hashanah, New Year, and Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. I was still thinking of where to go, if at all, and none of the possibilities, either in Poughkeepsie or the temple which my family attended, appealed to me. Then a friend invited me to spend the holiday with her in a Brooklyn synagogue, whose service she thought I would like. That seemed to be the right place, and I decided to go for Yom Kippur, the holiest and most solemn day in the Jewish calendar. I went, and there, for the first time in my life, fully participated in a religious service. The language, chants, and songs felt a part of me, and I felt the part of them. It was not the service itself, nor the meaning of the day, but the atmosphere I responded to, which enabled my soul to experience the day as something special.
And I'm
And
going to pause right there and excuse myself for the week, since I'm going to be hosting another class in about 3 minutes. So
all right.
thank you, Lynn, and thank you all. And as always, much appreciation to everyone participating, and have a wonderful week. Thank you much. Love to
Thank you
everyone.
so much, Bruce. Blessings to you and have a great time with your class. I'm guessing we're losing Marissa too. So thank you for coming in. And Marissa, it's good to see you.